Borderlands 4 is undeniably a game that is inevitably going to be released at some point. The franchise's story has yet to come to a conclusion, and while many people don't quite follow the story as heavily as other franchises, it doesn't mean that pieces aren't being put in place to set up for what's to come in the future. While DLCs and other spin-off titles have been released in the time since Borderlands 3's debut, it's only added a few extra items that you should probably be aware of for the future story. So here are 5 things that you should probably keep your eye on. The first and most prominent is this great war that was prophesized in the pre-sequel. An Iridian Guardian known as the Watcher forewarned to our characters that a war was coming and that we needed all of the Vault Hunters that we could get. While some fans believe this event has already come and gone in the events of Borderlands 2 or 3, the truth of the matter is the warning came after the events of 2, making that impossible, and Borderlands 3 just wasn't that story, even though many fans expected it to be. Other people believe this war was straight up abandoned, and it's a plotline that's never going to see the light of day. But in my opinion, while I legitimately have no proof, it makes sense that this war is the climactic event that everything is building up to, so it can be Borderlands' biggest title, delivering the most content in literally every way. Almost everything on this list alludes to a much larger picture beyond the typical plot we've been getting in a normal person striving for power. Now, ironically enough, Borderlands 3 hasn't done a great job at building this story if that's the case, because it's still quite unclear if this is meant to be the main event. I get why people think this war was abandoned, because no one's talking about it. The Watcher isn't around. It's like after this warning, everyone went back to their normal lives. You'd expect that if this war was a very important thing, that at least they'd kinda be mentioning it at literally any point during any part of Borderlands 3 or its DLCs. But it's been a bit of radio silence. But the whole reason you go into space into Borderlands 3 is to expand into the galaxy. The story was growing past just Pandora, and so it needed to be that transition title, which prepared people for a potentially much larger picture. So now that the galaxy has been opened up, we can expand beyond what we even did in 3. This next item, in all honesty, I wish didn't exist in the first place, but fact of the matter is, it's a thing now, and we just have to deal with that fact. I am of course referring to the Exton Anahadium Shard introduced in New Tales from the Borderlands. This gem is basically Thanos, if the Infinity Gauntlet was just part of him. This gem has the power to do almost anything. The gem itself is already this sentient being, so it's not just power to be manipulated. Its most prevalent features are its healing and destructive capabilities, but unfortunately they're not as simple as just healing and destroying things to a restricted scale. Like the extent to which this gem can heal and or destroy things, I mean there's no perceivable limit. I mean, in the game, this gem Thanos wipes every single being that has ever killed anything. And it's not like it's just planet-wide, it's galaxy, it's universe-wide. This gem is like an all-knowing being that kills everyone based on a single action of its choosing. And it just does that like it's nothing. And simultaneously, it brings them all back, which is probably the more important aspect of its abilities. Because many fans believe this gem is going to be the method to bring back the characters who have died. Roland, Scooter, Jack, Maya, literally every character that has died in a past title, this gem, on paper, does have the ability to revive them. And it does simultaneously play into the idea of getting all the Vault Hunters you can for a mega war. I mean, the prospect of having every character together all fighting a collective foe, it does sound awesome from a spectacle standpoint. I mean, yeah, you'd still have to think about why Jack would help us, considering he'd more than still likely be a megalomaniac, but if bringing everyone back is the case, I wouldn't want to see Jack be the villain again. I think there's no point in retreading old ground. The only way I think doing something like this would work is by doing something different. Maybe more of an enemy of my enemy is my friend type situation. Whatever galaxy monster exists requires everyone to work together. That way we could still have Jack, Aurelia, Nisha, Wilhelm, and all of them still be themselves, but working with us. A lot of people say how Jack really carries the franchise, and while I don't necessarily think that's true, he is someone that everyone loves. And he's a character that I think can still potentially be expanded upon. Would he still be the same if everyone was revived and brought back into his life? If Angel and his wife were brought back by the gem, would he be a changed person? And could the Vault Hunters forgive and look past their history? But getting his sarcastic ass back in the player's ear, but this time working in camaraderie with everyone, would be a fun and different angle. But anyway, that's getting too far into fanfiction at this point. The problem that persists with this gem for now is what became of it. After the events of New Tales from the Borderlands, it flew into the galaxy where a robot named Timmy came into contact with it. They fused, and that's the last time we saw it. Fiona, as revealed in the end, is searching for the gem, so we already do have a character in pursuit of it, so it wouldn't be that crazy if the next time we see her, she just has it. But the question is this gem going to be as important as we think it is? But the chances are we are going to see it again. The crazy thing is, even if the gem isn't as vital as I'm speculating, there's another method that can potentially deliver the same result, and that's the Timekeeper. The Timekeeper is a vault monster which has only ever been mentioned by name during one of Nereid's echo logs, but having a new vault monster name dropped like that feels very intentional. Like it's letting us know that this thing exists even if we haven't seen it firsthand. And with a name like Timekeeper, you can only imagine there's a handful of things it can do. Vault monsters are named very literally. There's usually not some sort of misdirection given. They do what they're named after. So even if the gem doesn't bring everyone back, it feels like the Timekeeper might be able to as well. That's why the idea of past characters coming back feels so strong amongst fans, because it seems like multiple avenues are being introduced that can all achieve a similar result. But just knowing that there's still a vault monster named the Timekeeper out there is a detail worth knowing. Now, let's step away from this war and the idea of bringing back old characters and talk about some other ones that are currently alive and might be important, like Mancubus. Mancubus perhaps provides the most mystery out of every single individual character within the franchise. Having seemingly come out of nowhere during Borderlands 3's second DLC, Guns, Love, and Tentacles, Mancubus was the semi-creepy yet welcoming proprietor of the lodge. While he doesn't do anything directly during the DLC itself outside of being a hospitable host, it's all the things we hear and learn about him which allude to a much more mysterious and dangerous man. All that we know about Mancubus himself is that he's a collector of things. He likes to gather items that to most probably don't mean anything, but to him are very specific. Perhaps some of these are of simple intrigue, like things of cursed origin, but most appear to be purposeful. But the reason Mancubus extends past the prospect of just being a character who's interested in these things is because by what he alludes to, he, or more accurately, the lodge itself, has been around since possibly the beginning of time.
As long as there has been a lodge, there has been a proprietor. And there has always been a lodge.
The lodge isn't just some normal building. It's almost its own powerful, sentient being. Eleanor, who is the villain of the DLC and is utilizing the power of Githian, one of the largest vault monsters we've ever seen, is incapable of extending their curse into the lodge. The lodge is providing sanctity and is holding back, almost reversing, the power of a vault monster. It's unclear how, but it does. And on top of that, the Lodge can simply go wherever it wants. It can move and teleport. It showed up on Athenas, where Mancubus obtained a book from Maya in exchange for a night's stay within the Lodge, which she accepted. But the next thing she knew, the whole place was gone when she woke up. The Lodge can travel wherever it wants to be. And it's really the words of an old friend of Mancubus, which alludes to his potential role in the future. Hyphonius is someone who currently resides in the basement of the Lodge as a statue, but a sentient one at that. He tells us that if we treat Mancubus well and respect the Lodge, then he can make a very powerful ally, while also warning us that crossing him would be a big mistake.
Treat the proprietor well and respect the Lodge, and you will find in him a powerful ally. But I caution you, do not overstep your bounds. There is a limit to even that one's hospitality. And as they say, beware the fury of a patient man.
By all accounts, it appears as though we as the Vault Hunters are on his good side. With the exclusion of Salvador, everything is going well with him. He did also kind of make a cameo in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. The whole concept of that game is that it's a tabletop adventure that Tina is telling the story of, but one of the characters is named Isabel Bloodtooth, which means Tina knows Mancubus's last name and is using it. But we don't know how or why. It's kind of its own in-universe Easter egg, but it raises a whole ton of questions. But what he's doing in terms of collecting these items and the power he and the Lodge possess remains a mystery that seems quite large. And finally, the most obvious thing that you can 100% expect to see come into play is what happened to Lilith. At the end of Borderlands 3, she used her siren ability to stop the moon from destroying Pandora, but in the process she wound up becoming lost. It was a very clear point that she didn't die from the incident, but rather disappeared into the ether, with Thanos taking point trying to find out what happened and where she went. Any number of possibilities can come true. It can be as simple as Lilith really did disappear somewhere else, which might be the reason we expand beyond the galaxy we got in just Borderlands 3. Or Lilith does also have the possibility of returning as her own vault monster. I've speculated many times that vault monsters may be an accidental creation due to the exposure of a vault's radiation, which transforms them into these beings. Some of them, at least. And there's no saying Lilith isn't being exposed to this radiation, but it's definitely a possibility. But anyway, guys, those were just a few plot points that can all potentially play a role in the next Borderlands game. If there are any other ones that you think might be important, be sure to leave a comment below, or let me know what you think about the ones that I provided. Any and all thoughts, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video.